Hello, everyone, and welcome to Stories Worth Hearing. I'm Denise Hansard. I'm your host, and the intent of this program is where I get to interview beautiful women who have great stories, who are on a mission to create in their life. And who I have with me today is Rita Goldberg. And I want to tell you just a little bit about her, but then I'm just going to let her take it because she's a beautiful person. She has a way of just making you laugh and just enjoy the presence with her. But Rita was born and raised in Blackpool, England, where she was an Olympic hopeful. And that's all I'm going to say. Then she had an injury, but that's all I'm going to say. So Rita, take it away and tell us your
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me and asking me. You are correct. I was a national swimmer. I swam in the Commonwealth Games and I was very young. I was one of the youngest people on the team. I was very young indeed. And I was heading for the Olympics. My trainer thought I might make it. In fact, just not long before that time, I made Olympic trial times. I was a breaststroke swimmer, 100 meters and 200 meters. And 4 weeks before the Olympic trials, nobody knows whether I would have been on the team, but I was certainly able to go to the tryout for the team. I tore a stomach muscle, an unheard of situation. And today, they probably could have got me going very quickly, but in those days, there wasn't the treatment, and I was out. I was out of the water. I was actually out of the water for about 6 months, and it killed the dream. 4 years going on to the next Olympics just seemed like a lifetime away, and so I didn't, and I sort of didn't compete much after that at all. In fact, I never have since then. And the rest of the story is all the history that was created by that love of swimming, even though it wasn't totally competitive.
Yeah, I
Right.
love that. I love
Yeah.
that because basically you had the dream and you still had the dream. It's just that the dream took a side exit.
Life happens, you don't plan it. I mean, my plan was to go to nursing school. There was no possibility that I wanted to get married and have children in an early time of my life, but life happened and I did. And it went along very nicely for many years. My husband was a good man and he had a wonderful family business. And then somewhere around about 1978, the family business collapsed. And
Mm.
I had been nothing at the time but a wife and mother with an interest in swimming. I did some lessons and I worked with children with special needs. And I actually had a full time job, but it was school hours on the Department of Manchester Education Department in their swim department. I led that department for a couple of years. And my husband didn't seem to be able to recover from this collapse of the family business because he'd known nothing else. And I realized very soon that somewhere along the line I was going to have to be the strong one and the breadwinner. And it was alien to me. I had not known anything about business. It had never, I don't even think I'd ever thought of ever running or owning a business. And certainly I didn't think I was qualified for anything other than my sports ed degree, which I eventually got. But that doesn't equate to business.
Right.
And what happened was very fortunate. Sometimes life comes along and gives you little tidbits which change the course of your life. I was going back to my hometown. I lived in Manchester now, which was 50 miles away. I was going back for the summer to be with my parents for a little while and with my children. And a friend of mine said, you ought to go and visit your old coach. He wasn't my main coach, but he was one of my extra coaches. And he's retired, but instead of putting a car in his garage, he put a swimming pool. And he's giving private lessons. You want to go look? I walked into that garage and my light switch went on.
Oh, your
I
passion. ignited.
That was it. That was it. I am going to open a swimming school.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Nobody had ever heard of a swimming school. There wasn't such a thing. It wasn't in the dictionary. It wasn't in the General Business Journal. There was no such thing. He wasn't a swim school. He was just giving swimming lessons in his garage. And I decided I'm going to come back. And of course, what happened then was the questions started.
Mm.
How are you going to do that? I have no idea. Where are you going to do that? I have no clue. Well, how are you going to raise the money? That I knew. I was going to sell my house because we had a very nice house at the time, which was going to be taken, I think, if we weren't going to make a living for ourselves. I said, we'll use that. Well, what do you know about business? Absolutely nothing, but I'm going to learn. And that's how it all began. And I knew I wanted to live on the premises, so I looked at various properties with apartments, etc. But I found this old derelict house that was falling down, but it had a huge basement. And I thought, that's where I'm going to put my pool. And
Oh,
that's how it all began.
your vision. Oh my gosh. I mean, just this is the passion. This is the passion that
Oh,
really
it was two passions put together. One was to feed my family, and one that was the first passion. That was becoming very obvious. It had to be me, and the other was how do I do it in a way that I love, and the two things joined together. And in spite of all the naysayers, uh,
Mhm. Oh
you
my
know, I put a pool in the basement and opened my swim school. It wasn't without drawbacks. Um, if you want to hear my big drawback, I will certainly briefly tell you that. And it was a funny drawback. It will probably feed your audience with the knowledge that you don't give up. And
God.
that was at about three-quarters of the way through the building, which was a very difficult thing to do, put a pool in the basement of a derelict house. I was beginning to think, like all new business people, that I might run out of money because you never know. And you never, as a newbie, I would never be able to predict the amount, even though I'd had accountants and I'd had business plans and everything. It's still a little dicey. And so I thought, well, I've got this wonderful business plan. I've three-quarters built. We already had a waiting list for classes. I'll get an overdraft facility, a line of credit. Well, I went to four different banks. One by one, they all turned me down. And the reason was a little vague. It was, well, you're young. This is a new business. And they didn't say you're a woman. What
But
they
that's
did
what you meant.
say, oh, yes. Then they announced that, well, if your husband would sign, well, we may be able to reconsider. That was a clear sign that it had something to do with the fact I was a woman. And the fourth bank I visited was Barclays, and he was a lovely man. He said, I wish we could, but if your husband would sign, maybe, and I was not going there. About 2 days after he had turned me down, I call him Mr. Barclay, although I'm sure he wasn't, I got a letter from a television station. It was ITV, it wasn't BBC. And I had entered a competition a couple of months before, and it was just, an evening thing that I thought I would do. They were asking for people to submit business plans, and they were going to judge, and the top 10 were going to go onto television and compete for a very large sum of money. I think the equivalent of $1 million today. And I got this letter 2 days after Mr. Barclay had turned me down. And what the letter said was, I'm very sorry, Mrs. Goldberg, you haven't come in the top 10, but you do have, you came in the top 20. And the second 10 are being given an automatic line of credit from Barclays Bank. And that was the equivalent of $100,000, which is what I wanted. I went back to Mr. Barclay and I said, read this letter, Mr. Barclay. You have to give it me now without my husband's signature. And that was exactly what happened. And it was a wonderful moment in my life. And that program that was ITV's new program, it was called Enterprise 80, went on to be in England the Dragon's Den, which was bought by America and is now the Shark Tank.
Oh my
So
God.
don't ever give up on your dreams. Just go round the corners and circumnavigate. Because
Oh,
without that, I don't know if I'd have got started,
oh my gosh. The universe always has a way. I love that. And I know part of your story is your your life, because you started that first, you were the founder of the British Swim School, which you said wasn't there. And then you had an opportunity, due to other circumstances and adversities in your life, to move to the United States.
I did. Everything was wonderful. The swim school was great. We were busy. I so wanted to expand. The only thing that wasn't working, and it hadn't been working for some time, was my marriage.
Mm.
My sister had moved to the United States, and I thought my kids at that point now were gone. I was an empty nester, and I thought if I don't do it now, I never will.
Mm.
And I got on a plane 2 days after I decided, didn't tell anybody except my husband and my parents, and my kids, of course. Oh, no, actually, yes, just one of my children. One was in Israel. And I took nothing. I took a suitcase and $2,800. And I came. And I thought I will see what life is like here. I had developed a particularly progressive method of teaching young children to survive by flipping onto their backs. And it had been very, very well received in England. In fact, it gained enormous notoriety. And I thought that was going to happen, that it must be here because America's so far ahead of Great Britain. And it wasn't. And I went from home to home teaching. And I found that this was amazingly well received. And I also found that even though I was sad having left my husband, and we both knew it was the right thing to do. So I decided to go for my visas and start a company here. And with backing, because I had to find backing, I never brought any money with me. And I did. And that grew into number one, number two, number three, number four British Swim School's indoor pools. And I was very fortunate because they went really well, and over this is all happening over a number of years, not overnight.
Right.
And I loved it. I loved the whole. People here are. I get asked a question which I think you probably would ask me, and that's the difference between business here and business in Britain. The difference here is people are very wildly encouraging if you have something new and different. Like we're Brits are very conservative, we're very slow and not quite so yeah. So I loved it. I was as happy as a sandboy. And both my kids came to join me, so that was even better.
Wow, what a story. And we have more to tell, obviously, but I mean, you started out with a dream and a passion, and the universe said, no, that ain't it."
All the time. All the time.
I know you kept hitting one curve in the road after another, and yet you kept going, Rita. I love that. Uh,
Think that's I think in every entrepreneur's nature.
Yes, I agree with you on that, on the true entrepreneurship, because it's as if it's in our blood and we cannot not do it, whatever
So,
it is. Yeah. Now, everybody, I want to pause for a minute because Rita's really not telling you the truth behind all this. Yes, she had started the British Swim School, not just in Britain, but also in the United States. She built it up to, had 4 or 5 schools at one point, and then she got the idea, why don't I franchise? And that's what you did. So tell us a little bit about that.
that was actually totally alien to me. I had no idea about franchising at all, how it worked, how it existed. What prompted that was when I had my two things actually. When I had my 4 schools, I had been knocking on Bally Fitness, that was on their door, to expand my company by allowing me to use their pools. In every fitness center, the pools are the least used piece of equipment.
Right.
And for 7 years, they said no, 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 no. On the eighth year, they said yes. Oh my. Now I am going into three different areas. I did New York, DC, and Chicago. And I went into pools in Ballet Fitness. And I found it extremely difficult. I had good managers who were great, but I still wasn't, I didn't quite get a handle on it at first at all. And those three managers were really good people. And they actually, all of them, no, two out of the three were doing sports management degrees or business degrees. And I knew if I was to grow, I had to keep them. But I also know that I had to provide a living and a future for them. And I didn't know quite how to do that. I looked at profit sharing, and it wasn't comfortable for me. There was too much discomfort for me. And I looked at licensing. And the thing about licensing is you don't have full control, which I have to admit I am, and always probably will be, a control freak. Again, like most true entrepreneurs. And we learn how to delegate, but basically we like to know everything.
Yeah, we want to.
And yeah, of course. And so when I looked into franchising, it sort of fit the bill all the way down. But of course, I knew nothing about franchising whatsoever. So I took myself off to a conference, 3-day conference on franchising. It was at Nova University. And I realized I truly knew nothing whatsoever. But I also knew that if I was to go down that route, and I pretty much decided after 2 days at the conference that that was the right route for me, I would have to employ 3 distinct avenues of experts. One was the legal aspect. The second was the manual, because you have to have excellent manuals if you're going to sell franchises. Every dot, every I has to be dotted and T has to be crossed. And the third was I realized I needed an expert by my side. So I went on to employ a consultant who worked with me for nearly 3 years. And those 3 things were the best decisions I had made, because I don't think the success that followed would have been there without that backing. And I started by, it took the best part of 18 months, to build the franchise and to do all this. And then my first 3, and I didn't actually, I have to be totally honest with you, I didn't think it would go anywhere except to my 3 managers who had shown interest that they wanted to buy in to the franchise. And that's all I did. I sold to my 3 managers. And then we were getting inquiries about it from customers of our swimming schools all over the country. We had, the Ballet Fitness, and we had the 4 here. And we thought, oh, okay, well, no reason why we can't sell to somebody and train them. And, well, there's no reason why somebody in Chicago can't do another area. And it just began to be absolutely wonderful. And I learned a great deal along the way. I will not tell any of your audience that there weren't mistakes and hiccups, but I had the consultant, and I was not allowed to make many. And it just grew, and the end of the story, I obviously can fill you in any questions you want to ask, but the end of the story was I sold my company 3 years ago, which was just before COVID, which was another miracle. It was nothing to do with COVID. And when I sold it, we were in 3 different countries. We had 77, if I remember rightly, franchisees, over 200 locations in 21 states in America. And we were in Canada and Turkey. So it worked. That's all I can say. It absolutely worked.
You know what, Rita? Your life, I love it. It's amazing, amazing. And yes, are there times that you wanted to give up? Absolutely. But the passion and the drive was always there.
Oh,
And
yes.
I just, we could talk forever, and I want to make sure that we get some more information in there for you. But if you had one thing that you wanted to tell our listeners, because, you know, that you haven't already told on the inspiration and just the motivation to keep driving, never tell yourself no is what I'm hearing because you said franchising. Okay, that sounds like it might work. Let me go take a training on that. It's kind of like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So if you had one thing, oh, okay, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, go ahead.
No, no. If you have one word of
One thing.
motivation, yeah, one thing, what would you tell our listeners?
I really do believe the one only thing that would stop you is yourself. If you accept no, or Rita, you can't do that, or anybody, you can't do that. If you accept that, then you probably haven't got what it takes, because I truly, deeply believe that there is a way if you believe that you can do it. Nike had it said it best when they did "I can do it," and I honestly believe that will override any doubts, any agonies you go through, and you do. You absolutely do. You agonize. I don't think I've stopped agonizing now. In fact, I was doing a course on public speaking, and they were talking about now what was it again? A syndrome that mostly women have.
Oh,
Uh, uh,
imposter syndrome. The
that's
imposter.
exactly, and that stays with you. Men don't seem to have that, and you have to truly believe in yourself, and be certain and not give up. There is nothing that will be higher on the list that I can tell you. I can tell you other bits and pieces, like find the experts, like I did with a consultant. Go and learn all about things. Don't be frightened to say, I don't understand. I'm not familiar with this, because we, as women, we think that's weakness. Men don't care; they just do it, and they actually half the time believe they know it anyway. But and I love men. Don't misunderstand me, but we are a different. We are from Venus, definitely.
Yes, I love that. That's great. So as you can see, everyone, Rita is a very special person, and she's had many different opportunities in her life with adversity, but she turned in the challenges, which she turned into opportunities, which was great. So what you're doing now is you've become a motivational speaker because obviously you're not slowing down. That
Hope, hope not. No, I hope not. I have changed. The thing someone was asking me the other day, what's the nicest thing about having sold the company? And I will tell you, I knew it was the right time to sell the company. It was growing so big, and it was getting the opportunities to do so much more, and technology was beginning to take over in the running of it. And like I mentioned before, delegation is absolutely necessary. That's another point too. But I always used to know what they were doing, the people that I delegated certain areas to. It was getting to the point where I didn't think I was going to be able to cope with the technology and know what they were doing. I knew that they were good enough to do it without me. So it was time to sell. But at no time, no one ever told me it was like losing a part of you. It
yeah.
was really very difficult. And we did have some hitches and glitches at the beginning of the takeover. I thought I would be staying on for a number of years in a small capacity. And it just didn't work out that way, unfortunately, not by my choice, but by the new owner's choice.
Mhm.
But I went on to think, well, what can I do? How can I give back all the joy and the fun and the knowledge that I've gained?
Mhm.
And the only way was to talk about it. And as you can tell, I'm not shy about doing that at all. I also felt that I could do that without the pressure of what I had uh, wanted to give up.
Yeah.
I realized that I was not going to be a very comfortable retiree. It was never anything that I set out to do completely. I had wanted to stay on with the company, but things didn't work out very well for that. And so the only way that I could think that I could give back was by doing motivational speaking, innovative speaking, particularly for the mid-level entrepreneur, not the startup. I'm not probably that good there, but with the growth of a company and how and advice. And I took myself off to the National Speakers Academy, and I learnt how to hopefully portray what I'm trying to teach people or trying to motivate people. And I am thoroughly enjoying it. And over the last few days, really, I have been negotiating to start a uh, what's the word? Not a fund, but drowning is a huge killer of children, especially under the age of 5. And my program was all about life saving. So we're starting um, an organization to fund lower income children. And the motivational speaking that I'm going to do, that will be what will fund this. Whatever I charge or whatever I'm going to be given for doing this is going to be put into a fund, and we're going to grow it throughout Florida, because Florida and California are the absolute hotbed of children drowning or near drownings. And so I have now got another focus, something to build on and something to achieve, which I firmly believe everybody should have an aim and a goal, because I'm sure that your visitors to your podcast can see that I'm not a young person, but I don't want to stop, because I think I'll grow old when I stop, and that's not on my agenda.
I'm applauding you and thank you so much. Everybody who's listening to this, look at Rita. She's done it. She's not stopping. She's continuing to do it. So when you think about can you, dive deep inside and find your passion, find your desire, because that's exactly what you've done. Rita, thank you so much for being on today. I'm going to put all of your information down below so that people can get in touch with you. But what is one way that they can reach you if they wanted to?
Yes, well, you could go through my website, which is rcgwomanofinfluence.com, or you can actually email me at Rita, the letter C, don't miss the letter C, Goldberg, Goldberg, at gmail.com.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So thank you again. I want to say thank you again. And thanks everyone for listening. Rita has a great story. I'd love for you to like, share, and even subscribe to this channel, because you can see that women who are on a mission to create can do beautiful things. Until
And
next
thank
time.
you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was lovely.
Thank you, hon. See you next time.